Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me this far. This is episode 6 in the Airbnb series. If you haven't yet, make sure you join my Facebook group, Insider Airbnb with Candace Key. That's where you're gonna get the extended version of these videos, a lot more information, but all that stuff is just gonna be in the Facebook group. The YouTube is just a little bit of the information that I'm sharing. The insiders get it all. So what we're gonna talk about for episode 6. Who books Airbnb in London, Ontario? That's the number one question I get asked. So I'm gonna give you some examples of people that book regularly. Firstly, I'm sure is not hard for a lot of people to guess. I get a lot of international students for Western and Fanshawe. Western and Fanshawe are a big part of the economy here in London, Ontario. And basically, I get a lot of people and their parents who are in between dropping off kids at residence, or even if they're in Ontario and they're not international students, they might come into London, make sure they get their kids settled for a week, or if they're going into one of the bigger years in university, they'll come and in between leases, they will stay at an Airbnb. So students are a big category of people that I do get in my Airbnbs often. The second category would be professionals. So it could even be professors sometimes, although I find that professors usually want to book their own Airbnb, not just a room. But there's professors, there's doctors, there's people that travel specifically, not just for Western and Fanshawe, but for professional career training. So I had a surgeon stay with me from Germany. He was someone who focused on elbow and wrist surgeries, and he came to Canada to check out our healthcare system and check out how we do surgeries here in Canada. So he ended up staying with me for a month. There's lots of different people from South Korea, India, Europe, all over the place. I'm talking about, and Canadians. So really when people ask me like who uses Airbnb, I'm always like, everyone uses Airbnb. And I often get a lot of first timers too. And I'm just gonna tell you a little story about the first time I used Airbnb, which was in Germany. So I was very hesitant to use Airbnb because I thought it was very weird to go into someone's house. I was very hesitant, and also I thought it was dangerous. So that's just how I felt about Airbnb before I became this person who uses Airbnb all the time, hosts, advocates for Airbnb and short-term accommodations. I was that person who didn't want to do it. I arrived in Germany without any accommodations booked, not knowing that Comic-Con was the same weekend that I was in Cologne, Germany. And even though I wasn't there for Comic-Con, everything was booked. Hotels, hostels, the only thing that was available was Airbnb, and it was a lot of rooms that had no reviews because all the ones that had reviews were already booked up. So I had to take a really big chance when I arrived in Germany and go to an Airbnb. Now my host had never done Airbnb either, which made for a very unique experience. It was really awesome though. I stayed in his guest room. He was a single dad with his daughter, and he invited me out with his friends too, and I went to some local German places. He spoke English. A lot of people in Germany speak English because they learned in school. So I ended up having this amazing experience in Germany, and that's how I came back to London to find out, is there a market here in London, Ontario for people to actually book places? And if so, what does that market look like? I started out with one room because I had one roommate move out, and I thought I will try one room and I will see if it gets booked, and I'll go from there. And it's literally become kind of like a game changer for me within basically like my career, my friends. A lot of people my age are now doing it because I suggested doing it. A lot of people, no one wants to be the first to do something often. So since I was first with skin in the game when it came to this, and I started doing more and more rooms, as people moved out from being roommates, I just started getting more and more Airbnb rooms. And it really just started changing the way that I'm doing real estate and the way I'm actually helping other people to do investments. So beyond the students, beyond the professionals, there's also locals to London that use Airbnb in between leases or in between house purchases. I will say to be careful on who you're renting to if you rent to a local. It's not against local Londoners, it's just be careful because we've had good experiences and bad experiences. The good experiences came from people that were actually in between purchasing a house and their new build was not yet built, and we had a really nice lady with her grandkids stay at one of our Airbnbs for 4 weeks, and it was a really positive experience, and that was fine. I've had some negative experiences and some house damage happen with locals that could not get leases elsewhere. So you really have to vet who's staying in your house and ask yourself, if they're local to the area that you're hosting in, why is it that they can't get accommodations elsewhere? Because, you know, first and foremost, when we're inviting people into our home, we want to make sure we're inviting the right type of people. So I will say, be mindful of researching who you're inviting into your house if you are going to invite a local in as one of the travelers. So besides those 3 categories of people, there's also really short-term people. So there's people that go to Budweiser Gardens for events and they only come in for like a weekend. Pride London, lots of different events that happen, not just at Bud Gardens. There's concerts at the London Music Hall. There's all sorts of things that bring in people for short-term. Weddings, funerals, unfortunately. And the last kind of big category I will say is people that need to go to the hospital or they're visiting someone at the hospital. One of the most truly touching things that I've experienced from Airbnb is the opportunity to help people out who would not be able to afford to stay in a hotel whether a loved one is in the hospital. There's cancer treatment, there's long-term disease treatments, there's fertility treatments in London, Victoria Hospital, University Hospital. There's all sorts of medical facilities in London which provide people different treatment plans, and people were literally forced to either couch surf, which is unregulated, or pay for a hotel, or they couldn't stay in London, or sleep in their car. Like literally Airbnb's opened up this whole opportunity for people to stay. I've hosted personally a family that stayed while their dad was going through chemo, and what an experience. Like, it's a very emotional time for these people. It's hard. It's hard. Most people's lives have been touched by cancer. Mine has as well. And when you see that you can open up your home on Airbnb and you're actually helping someone who wouldn't be able to afford a hotel for their entire family as they're going through this treatment plan, it really just does go improve the good that Airbnb can do, as long as we allow it to keep doing the good that it's already been doing. Airbnb can truly be a way to give back to people, Ontarians, Canadians, within our country who need somewhere to stay and can't afford a hotel when they're dealing with medical treatments, as long as we don't overregulate it and we keep the competition fair. So hopefully City Council keeps that in mind as they move forward with what regulations they consider for London, Ontario. Thank you so much for joining me on Insider Airbnb with Candice Key, my series on Airbnb here in London, Ontario. Today, I'm so glad you joined me as we talked about who's using Airbnb right now and the different ways we can make sure we can keep working with the community for a safe Airbnb. If you like this video or you have questions or comments, please comment them below, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel to hear more content about short-term accommodations and help me to move forward in a way that works to benefit the most amount of Londoners. Thanks again.